I'm John Strickland, and I'm delighted to be hosting the session. Good to see quite a number of you here. We're not at 100% load factor. Hopefully a few more people will come in, but it's respectable for this time of day and all the other distractions you've got. We have our panel now titled, What are the hot topics in the airline world? And we added the epitaph, an airline and airport panel discussion. Well, sadly, we lost our airport. I'm not quite sure why, but I was in contact with Amman Airport in the last couple of days, and there have been some unforeseen circumstances, so unfortunately she cannot make it, which means I'm going to make my other two panelists work even harder to try to cover some of the airport issues as well. And please feel free, if you've got questions. It's actually quite hard to see you up here, believe it or not, the light's shining in. But if you really want to put a question or get involved in the debate as we go along, I think there's going to be enough time to do that. Put your hand up or shout out, and we'll get a microphone to you as we go on. So we're going to look at the fast-changing airline world. We've seen the last year, as I mentioned for those of you who were here earlier, a difficult year with fuel prices rising, all sorts of geopolitical challenges, competition changing, airline business models changing too. We're going to look at some of those factors with our airline guests today. We're also going to look at the issue about next generation passengers. You know, the classic millennial demographic, the change in the way customers are not just booking their flights, but planning their travel overall. We're really in the age of digital, big data. That's having an effect not just for what we do as customers, but of course for the way that airlines function and the way they work with suppliers and partners in that space. So I won't spend any more time giving you a flavor of what I hope we're going to discuss. I'm going to welcome, if gentlemen, you will start your walk to the stage, welcome my two guests to the stage. First of all, we have flying in specially from Singapore, we have Joey Seu. Joey, if you'd like to join us on the stage. Joey is Regional Vice President, West Asia and Africa for Singapore Airlines. And I think I can fairly call you a veteran of the industry, Joey.
Thank you.
I think you've got 30 years almost for Singapore Airlines.
Thank you.
Grab a seat, but you look very young, unlike me, who looks old and wrinkly. So welcome to Dubai for your short visit here. And also welcome to the stage, we have Gavin Harris, who's considerably younger, a relative youngster in the industry, but still very experienced. Gavin Harris is Commercial Director, APAC region, Gavin, for Skyscanner.
Yep.
Grab a seat. Well, welcome to both of you, and feel free to disagree with each other if you wish. And as I say, the audience, if you would like to join in, then please do so. And as I said, I'm going to tap your knowledge a little bit about airports too, because our lady colleague is absent. Well, Joey, tell us first of all a bit about what are the markets you're covering personally in your brief, and how do they differ?
Okay, I look after the West Asia and Africa region, and we define West Asia as countries west of Bangladesh. So it would be Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Central Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. So over the last year, it's been a very exciting year for us in West Asia and Africa. In the case of the GCC countries, where fuel price is now $70, or slightly more than $70. A few years back, it was $40. So clearly, the worst is over. But certainly, we are not where we were in the good old days. But certainly, we are on the right track in terms of demand and how the demand side is doing in the GCC countries. In the other South Asian markets, at this point in time, they are election season in India. Sri Lanka, over the last week, had a very tragic incident. We think there will be some slowdown as a result. But we think this will blow by. Africa is exciting virgin territory for all of us. And certainly we think that it's a land of opportunity.
And you say your markets are very diverse, but sadly, as you understandably touched on there, the tragedy we've had in Sri Lanka a little more than a week ago. Now, we do live in a world today that is exposed. I think pretty well every part of the world has had these tragic incidents. With your long career experience, what do you generally see when these things happen? Does it lead to demand drying up completely for an indeterminate period, or do people travel as normal despite these incidents?
We've seen quite a number of such incidents in the past. In the case of our network, we've seen attacks, for example, happen in Bali, and the immediate aftermath was a dip in arrivals. That was some years back. But people have very short memories. And shortly after that, Bali is now a very popular destination in Southeast Asia. So likewise, we think that terrorism will never win the war against tourism. And we believe that at some point when the authorities ensure there is stability and calm and security, certainly the tourists will come back. We're very confident of that.
I mean, Gavin, you're a Brit who's lived in Asia. I mean,
Yep.
do you think there's a different mentality when these kind of tragedies happen? Do you think there's a difference between European and Asian mentality, or as Joey was saying, is it more or less similar everywhere? People take it in their stride and they basically have to carry on with life.
Yeah, I don't think I've really seen a dramatic difference
No.
from my time in Asia and the UK. I think it's a case of the initial shock, but then we have been through these periods before, and even in the data from Skyscanner, you can see that eventually the growth returns and the confidence returns as well in that sense.
And the kind of data that you have, I mean, we're talking about, I mean, for those who are maybe not aware, Skyscanner is a gigantic business, Chinese owned, but what kind of data are you getting? Is it all about flight searches, or does it go beyond that?
Yeah. So Skyscanner's data, where it differs to airline industry data, is that it's really sort of forward-looking in the sense that it's based around traveller demand. You've got airline industry GDS data that's all based on booking numbers, PNRs, etc. Skyscanner's pulling data out from the sort of demand side when users are searching for new destinations, searching as a family, as an adult, etc. Return one-ways, that side. It's all future data in that sense.
Yeah, it's quite a big difference. Well, I think we're going to come back and touch on that again
Sure.
In a minute, Gavin. And Joey, Singapore Airlines, you know, I put in my notes, you know, for as long as I can remember, the image of Singapore Airlines is as a quality carrier personified by the Singapore girl. Now, many airlines, they rebrand the name, the way they market, but as far as I know, that Singapore girl image has remained right the way through. But you're in an environment which is so different to 10, 20 years ago, you know, much more exposed to competition. I talked earlier with Tim Clark from Emirates about the growth of long-haul low cost. You have short-haul low cost all around you, not least with AirAsia Group, AirAsia X on the long-haul side. You know, is it still sustainable to have this quality position for you as an airline, looking specifically at Singapore Airlines itself?
Okay, I think there are quite a number of questions for that question. Firstly, the Singapore girl. As an airline, we believe in our brand positioning is on the premium product, and we have a premium service value proposition. And the Singapore girl is the personification of quality service, attentiveness, the Asian hospitality, and the premium service that we offer to our customers. And this is something that will not change. It's the same uniform we've had since 1972, which is, 39 years? 37 years today. So it's really something that will continue to be part of our DNA, our philosophy and our process, and how we communicate to the customers. But you mentioned about how business models have changed, and AirAsia is in our neck of the woods. We too also have our low-cost subsidiary that's called Scoot, fundamentally because we know that there are different segments of the market, right? There is the premium segment of the market, which Singapore Airlines Group would want to cater to. And there's also the low-end segment of the spectrum. Just like in watches, or in, you have Patek Philippe and you have Swatch watches, and there are different segments of the market. And likewise, when you buy cars, a Lexus and a Toyota, so too it is in the case of the airline space.
Just stepping back a minute, because I think Scoot is, I really want to ask you quite a bit about it, but even going back before long-haul low-cost, as low-cost short-haul and intra-regional came in with, I think, probably AirAsia being the biggest players, I don't know at what point there was this takeover. It was Silk Air was, am I right to say Silk Air was a separate airline that was acquired by Singapore Airlines, or was it, my memory's so bad, or was it even set up by?
Okay, so Singapore Airlines has only wide-body planes today. Our smallest plane is our A330, and the largest plane is the A380. And we recognize that we need to have a regional plane, and Silk Air was founded 100% owned by Singapore Airlines to serve this purpose. They have only narrow-body planes, the 320s as well as 737s, to serve that route. So on the full-service spectrum of the business, we have the full-service short-haul, that's Silk Air, and the full-service long-haul, that's Singapore Airlines. Okay. And on the low-cost spectrum...
Well, when was that set up? When was Silk Air set up?
Silk Air was set up in 1989.
Okay,
so this year will be 40 years.
Before any low-cost had come to the region.
That's correct.
And then for a while after that, you at some point, again, my history is blurred, you set up Tiger.
That's correct.
As a low-cost airline in Singapore and then later in Australia too. That was a response, I guess, more fully to what was happening with AirAsia, but it's not there anymore as part of the Singapore group.
Okay, so yes, Tiger was formed in 2005, if my memory serves me right, serving the short-haul routes within Southeast Asia. And it was a separate company, went public, and subsequently taken private. It has now since merged with Scoot. Scoot is the long-haul LCC, and has only, prior to the merger with Tiger, has only wide-body planes. And in order to function effectively, they needed a narrow-body feed to enable feed within the short-haul network to feed on these long-haul flights. So Scoot and Tiger have now effectively merged to form one company to serve the low-cost segment of the market.
But on the inter-regional, Scoot, Silk Air and Tiger were they were always for different purposes, and Silk was never, as you say, a low-cost airline. It was a quality carrier, but more narrow-body focus. Scoot was founded how long ago now? It's much more recent, and that's a response to long-haul low-cost, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So Scoot was founded about 6 years ago. Yeah. 6 years ago, and its mission was to go into medium to long-haul operations. They started with 777s, and now essentially a 787 fleet. But of course, when you have a long-haul LCC, you require feed from your regional LCC, and that's why both entities merged. So effectively now, Singapore Airlines Group has a full-service arm on the long haul, supported by a regional full-service arm, as well as a LCC long-haul arm, supported by a LCC regional arm. So we wanted to keep both businesses somewhat separate to make sure that they are able to have the discipline to run the business according to the business model.
So they are separately managed?
That is correct. Okay. Separately managed with its own management team and its own board.
Okay. And Silk Air, is that going to be merged completely into Singapore Airlines? Is that something that I correctly
read? Yes, we've announced that within the next year or so, we plan to merge Silk Air with Singapore Airlines. So it will no longer have two letter codes and two different AOCs, just like Tiger and Scoot no longer have two different AOCs and two letter codes. So eventually we will have one full-service entity called Singapore Airlines, just as we have one single LCC entity called Scoot in Singapore.
Okay. And since you've been involved in the low-cost market, are you finding you're getting additional customers, different customers, or is it the people you already had simply traveling differently or more cheaply?
A lot of people try to pigeonhole customers and identify, the guys in the suits are the corporate customers and the guys in the flip-flops are the budget customers. But the reality is that a lot of the guys in the suits, when they go on holiday, they wear the flip-flops. So the question is, how do we make sure that for the right segment of the market, for the right route that it operates, we have the right vehicle? And I think that's fundamentally the difference. Typically, I guess in Europe and in the US, a lot of the short-haul routes are run by low-cost carriers, whether it's Ryanair or EasyJet or Southwest in the US. And they use it on a high frequency, efficiently run, quick turnaround, effective service. In Asia, the economy class full service product is distinctively different from the economy class and business class product is distinctively different from the low cost product. I think in Europe and in the US, the business class product is almost identical to the economy class product in Europe and in America. So the full service and the low cost product in Asia is distinctively different, and that's why we are able to continue to maintain a different segment of the market between the low cost space as well as the full service space.
So even though the Asian region is very diverse culturally, you found it would be evident that with AirAsia X customers, there is a strand of customers who will accept the lower price and paying add-ons for whatever else they want, baggage, seating, catering, and so on.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So I think the fact that I think in Europe, what happens is that the cabin is the same cabin, but the business class curtain moves forward and backwards depending on the load. So actually, if you're a business class passenger, the only difference is that the middle seat is
folds down.
It folds down. It's not occupied, and essentially you have the same seat. But full service carriers in Asia justify their existence by offering a distinctively different product in business class than they do in economy. So I think that does make a difference in the value proposition to the customer. Okay. And as a result, we still fly routes within Asia, within an hour or so to Jakarta, to Bangkok, and we still get a significant number of our customers. And of course, the low-cost carriers also fly those routes, and they get a different segment of the customer. So it's a good example of how the different business models can coexist because they are fundamentally different segments of the market.
And moving into long haul with the low cost with Scoot, and competing with airlines like AirAsia, I guess competition with Jetstar maybe as well. Are you finding there that the response to get long haul was driven by the fact that Singapore Airlines itself felt you were losing long haul customers to the new low cost segment? Was that a driving factor?
I think from our perspective, we want to make sure that we have the right vehicle for the right product. So let me give you an example. We used to fly to Jeddah. It comes under my portfolio in Saudi Arabia. And when we put the Singapore Airlines product in, we found that there were a lot of pilgrims who were on that flight between Singapore to Jeddah, and hardly any of them will be in business class. So if the demand of the market is that there are pilgrims who saved a lot, the life savings just to do their pilgrimage, which is their religious obligation, and what they want is a cheaper fare and a reliable product, then perhaps we needed to have a more effective vehicle that meets the market demand, which is why we felt that Singapore Airlines product was not the suitable product, and Scoot now operates the route between Singapore and Jeddah, because that's essentially what the pilgrims wanted, and we wanted to make sure that the vehicle to offer them the right product is meet to the market.
And I mean, Scoot is reaching as far as Europe. Is it one or two routes? Certainly Athens, I know.
Yes, Athens, and I believe in Berlin as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that served previously by SQ itself, Singapore Airlines?
Yes, we also serve Athens.
So you still serve Athens?
Well, we used to serve Athens.
Right, okay.
Similar to the Jeddah example, I mean, there are a lot of tourists who are in the back of the bus.
Right.
Very few corporates. So, well, if the market demand is such that what the customer wants is a reliable product seated at the back of the bus, and they want the cheapest fare, then we need to give them the vehicle with the right cost base that delivers that product. And I think that's how we are able to deliver a sustainable business model to meet the market needs.
And do you feel optimistic in the group that you can actually make the long-haul low-cost airline profitable? Because I mentioned this to Tim Clark from Emirates this morning. So far, no one seems to have really succeeded. And actually, I remember specifically with Scoot, reading in maybe about the first year or second year of operation, the CEO at the time was quoted somewhere saying that the break-even load factor was something like 120%. So that doesn't look too good for a long-term business model. Have things moved on?
Yeah, things have moved on, and I think the last financial year, Scoot was profitable.
Yes.
So I think that bodes well. We just need to make sure that we have the right market or the right vehicle for the right market. I think that is key to success, whether it's the full-service market or in the low-cost market.
Okay. And Gavin, a Skyscanner, in my mind, would be a tool used maybe by a younger demographic, a more tech-savvy demographic. Is that a fair comment? Or are you seeing differences in different kinds of customers with different needs when it comes to air travel, like, for example, business class versus a cheap price or a better schedule in the activity you have?
Yeah, so it's fair to say originally we were established as a price comparison site,
right?
And the results were sorted by cheapest price, etc. So we did actually have that. It was pretty fair to say that that's the type of market you were aiming at.
Right.
However, since we've actually established a lot of strong partnerships with airlines like SQ, Cathay, etc., and we've actually brought them into our direct booking funnel where we can showcase differentiations, rich content, targeted prices, etc. It's opened us up to a different level of customer. We've raised it to fare families, to business class, to first class, and that side and the data's showing us that as well.
And when you say, just a couple of technical terms there,
sure.
When you say direct bookings and booking funnel, rich content, what does all that mean? I mean, there's probably a lot of techies in the audience.
Sure. So just a bit of context. So Skyscanner is regarded as a meta-search organisation and has been, and was traditionally a price comparison site. And that involved Skyscanner sourcing fees from travel agents and airlines, displaying those fees in a cheapest price sort algorithm, and users who chose a flight would then redirect into a Singapore Airlines website via a deep link. So landed where the price was already selected, the itinerary, the day, the date, etc. in that sense. Now, as we move into more of a mobile world, we're realizing that friction point of a redirect doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work on a mobile phone, on a mobile network, on a subway system. It might have worked on an old desktop system. And that's what we've developed. We've developed direct booking, and a lot of this direct booking technology is actually powered by NDC, which is New Distribution Capabilities, which is an initiative for IATA. Sorry for all the acronyms here, but
I'm going to come back to that particular one.
Sure. Yeah. And it's about giving airlines like SQ the ability to forward their pricing, their fares, etc., onto third parties as well, and having more control outside the GDS in that sense. So going back to direct booking, it's really a technical configuration to try and remove that friction point of that redirect where people were maybe hanging to move on to the website.
And can you tell, though, what kind of customers you're getting? I mean, in terms of age or, I don't know, social characteristics at all?
Yeah, it's our growth teams all over the world have that data, and they use that data to then target on marketing campaigns as well.
But how do they know? I mean, how is it because you ask questions of customers about, I don't know, age?
Yeah, we've got that. We've got social. You've got social tools as well that gives you age profiling in that sense as well. And it really differs quite dramatically. What we are seeing across the Middle East is that sort of rising demographic of millennials. And a lot of that's, I think, in the Middle East just now, we're seeing, I think it's 158% year-on-year growth in mobile traffic, which far outweighs what we're seeing in desktop. And a lot of that's coming from the millennials that are driving that as well.
Okay. Going to come back to some of that,
Sure.
Gavin. Back to you again, Joey. In terms of, we talked about the challenge of the market. Now, I know your year-end financial results are out in a few weeks. We don't know what they're going to show completely. What I saw in my research so far, the year to date up to the third quarter has been quite a challenging year with results somewhat down. What have been the main pressures for you as a business in general terms over the last year? Fuel has got to be one. Fuel's been going up again in price.
So I think if you talk about profitability is a function of revenue and cost.
Yeah.
And on these two parameters, there are a lot of items which are beyond our control. So on the cost side, as you rightly mentioned, fuel is one of the drivers of cost, and it's creeped up over the last couple of months. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, past $70. Earlier in the year, it was close around 50. So that will pose a constraint. On the revenue front, economic cycles and economic uncertainty is something that we don't control. So the tariffs and the trade war, in a certain sense, in some parts of the world, has impacted business. Uncertainties in Europe over Brexit, is it a deal or no deal, has also affected some travel decisions. I hear that people in Britain are choosing to stay at home instead. So there are some areas which, in terms of the demand situation, are a little bit weaker. But in certain countries, we also see certain bright spots. Asia continues to generally remain quite strong in terms of the Asian economies. And also all the opportunities within Africa, in the GCC countries. And like I said, there's some significant recovery compared to the last 2 years. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. There are some parts of the world that we are stronger. Some parts they are showing a little bit uncertainty, but they are also, because of our diversified network, there are other markets which actually lift us up.
You touched on trade war issues like US-China, and I'd asked Sir Tim Clark about that this morning from Emirates, and he acknowledged it as an issue. He said it's something in the discussions that needs to get a resolution because it is acting as a brake on the world. I mean, China, I guess, you're right there in the region. How important is that market to you as a business? As
China is a significant market for us, we have Singapore Airlines Group has the most number of points in China after a Chinese carrier. So after you take into consideration a Chinese carrier, there's no other foreign carrier that serves China in terms of the number of points that Singapore Airlines serves. Singapore Airlines Group serves, including Scoot, Silk Air, and Singapore Airlines. So in terms of access to the multiple Chinese points, we have the most number of points. It is a significant market. China's economy is growing close around more than 6%. Still a very respectable number by developed country standards. And certainly its large population provides significant opportunities for tourism investment potential. The government's Belt and Road Initiative, which straddles through parts of Asia, even all the way up to the Middle East, provides significant opportunities for investment, tourism, and growth. So we think that if they can actually, among the two biggest economies in the world, the US and China, can resolve their differences, certainly it will be a significant fillip to our business in
Do you feel optimistic that there is going to be a resolution?
Well, we are hopeful that there will be a resolution soon. Right? It's a question of time, but we are hopeful that there will be a resolution shortly.
Now, Gavin, looking at what Joey has said there, can you see in your own data evidence of patterns about what consumers are thinking in different parts of the world? And some of the themes that Joey mentioned, be it Brexit or US-China trade war, is that showing indications of booking activity being up and down in different markets?
Yeah, we've got the data there, so we can see when there's maybe a dramatic increase in searches from origin X to destination B type thing. But in terms of specifics, it's not something that I can think of at this stage in terms of the impact on Brexit or anything like that. We're still seeing relatively strong growth at this stage as well. I know that Tim Clark mentioned earlier that there was, in terms of the outbounds from the UK, the UK's population was looking forward to another crazy summer like we had last year as well. But to be honest, our data's not really shown that. We're still seeing healthy growth in these markets as well.
And China's a market, you're Chinese owned.
Yep.
I mean, are Chinese consumers ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to travel and airlines? Are they leading the world with a different approach?
Yeah. Absolutely, in the sense of we're Chinese owned, and we've learned a great deal over the last few years from C-Trip, in the sense that the Chinese market, I think it's 75% of all e-commerce is on mobile, which is exceptional compared to other markets. 75%. 75% of all e-commerce, and compared to other markets, it dwarfs other markets as well. So when we're looking at where the rest of the world is moving, we're actually learning from China in so many ways in that sense as well. And not just China. If you look at in terms of mobile first countries that are out there, you've got markets. Mature markets like Korea and Japan. Korea, I think it's 78% of our traffic in Korea is mobile traffic. Japan's 76%, versus the sort of like more established markets like Australia, UK, and even the US, which is more closer to around the 50%. But across all markets, and this is a global theme, and absolutely it's a dramatic shift from desktop users to mobile. And it's a difficult one because that's a completely different user behavior. Skyscanner itself was built on the idea of a big screen with able to show lots of options and lists, etc. And now you have small screen, so you're going to need to think about things like moving into personalization of offers. Skyscanner's already doing that to a certain degree. We've gone from that price comparison to product comparison, and we've used things like machine learning to then start to sort our prices, considering other things like stopovers, journey times in that sense as well. And it's all really geared up to how do you display this content on mobile versus what we were used to in the past in desktop as well. And that's something that the airline industry really needs to think about, because we still speak with a lot of airlines that haven't really committed to mobile yet.
Right.
They don't have mobile optimized site, they haven't thought about apps, etc. And So that's at the basic level of user behaviour.
So there are really differences in generation as well,
yep.
I guess. Because Jerry, what do you see as an airline? Because if I think, I'm not close to it myself, but if I think of, say, Chinese tourists in Europe, you would think of maybe large groups, very homogenous, maybe being led by a Mandarin or Cantonese-speaking guide, going around all the major tourist sites of Europe. But from what Gavin's saying, we're getting, well, globally, more younger people willing to explore themselves, more at ease with their own ability to get around the world. Are you seeing that through Singapore Airlines?
I think the first-time traveler, as you rightly mentioned, would probably follow a group with a flag-waving guide to show them the sights. But after the second and third trip, chances are, in the case of China, they go out on their own. And we're seeing more and more of these FIT travelers. They are the ones, as Gavin says, they come with their phones. I believe they're probably here in Dubai as well, taking all their selfies and Wi-Fis. Mobile commerce is important for them. So I think many countries now therefore accept WeChat Pay or Alipay. They do that in Singapore as well. These are necessary requirements if you want to attract the Chinese customer. I mean, in the airport duty-frees, the airport person is not here, but they hire Chinese-speaking customer service people to cater to the big spenders. So fundamentally, they are everywhere. The large population of the Chinese fundamentally fill up many of the hotel rooms around the world, right? They are in our planes, they are in your airports, and how we change the way we do business to suit their needs becomes key to success.
Yeah, because I read some of it. The Chinese government was actually telling some shops they should still accept cash because they're not wanting to, because they almost didn't need to, at least as far as young people are concerned. Right. Just want to step back again onto maybe my more comfort zone of airline technical world. I mean, Joey, we talked about your financials, challenges, whether it's fuel or these geopolitical angles. How do you think Singapore sits compared to your peer group of airlines? So to me, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, if I look at airlines like Cathay or Malaysian, they to me would be similar airlines in the region that have been around for a long time, had that reputation of Asian quality. Cathay in particular seems to have been really struggling recently. It's now doing a lot to try to turn around, but it seems to me you're in a better shape. Are there differences between those three carriers?
I mean, we're not in a position to comment on the Malaysian or Cathay. Obviously, they have different operating conditions. Mm-hmm. Cathay is in North Asia. They have a different market segmentation than we do. They have different vehicles to service the markets that we do. But certainly, we respect them. Cathay and Malaysian and Singapore Airlines were the same company until 1972 when we split into our different national carriers. But I would say that in the case of Singapore Airlines, thank you for giving me the airtime. We will continue to be steadfast in our service to our customer, in our pursuit of excellence, in offering the highest premium product that the market will see, to make sure that we hold that brand value proposition in the market. So that's our determination at Singapore Airlines Group for Singapore Airlines itself to be the best premium carrier in the market. Right? So in all our marketing, sales, product positioning, we are determined to put that as our entire centerpiece of our business strategy.
And looking at that combined with your fleet, particularly Singapore Airlines, well, it applies to Scoot having a modern fleet also, but looking at you being one of the lead carriers, I can't remember if you were number one with the A380, but certainly one of the
Yes, we were the first to fly
the first airlines to fly it. Now bringing in 787, Dreamliners and Airbus A350s. how does that tie in again with a premium proposition? Because the technical capability of these aircraft is, again, flying, especially the smaller wide bodies, is long range, and you're putting in some of these ultra long range routes, like to the US, which you flew before, and I think stopped around about the time of the financial crisis because the economics weren't stacking up. Those very long flights must rely a lot on premium customers, and we need the right kind of plane to operate economically.
So actually, there are quite a number of questions there. So let me just
sorry,
tackle
I keep asking you about 3 questions.
Let me just tackle them one at a time. In terms of premium positioning, we've announced, our CEO has announced this. We are progressively retiring our 330s and our 777s. And our core mainstay will be the 350 medium haul as well as the 787. And we have already introduced our 787-10 into the market last year, and also our 350 medium hauls. And what statement we're going to make is that in future, when you board a Singapore Airlines flight, right, whether it's a long haul flight or whether it's a short haul flight, when you're in business class, it will be lie flat. And that's the commitment, right? No angle flat business or no chair, but meaning whether you are on a 1 hour flight to Penang or to KL or to Jakarta, or 2 hour flight to Bangkok, it's going to be a lie flat business class on a 1-2-1 configuration, not 2-3-2, not 2-2-2, a 1-2-1 configuration where everyone has immediate aisle access. And that's our commitment to our premium customers, that we will not be beaten in the space, we will be the best premium product in the market. So,
and you have first class as well.
We do.
Is that selective on certain routes?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay.
So we do have first class, business class, premium economy, as well as economy. So we, in the case of Dubai, we operate a 4-class cabin product with premium economy as well as economy.
Well, I was just asking Emirates this morning about their move to premium economy next year, and they spend a lot of time maybe agonizing about whether this was going to be trade down or trade up. Has it been a positive experience for you to have that?
For us, it's been really positive. I think we introduced PEY about 2 years ago. It was a time in the case of in Dubai where because of the collapse of the oil price, some corporates were downsizing. And instead of downgrading all the way to economy, premium economy is a good middle ground. And I joined Singapore Airlines 29 years ago. And the reality is, the business class we served then is actually the premium economy class product we serve now. And
business has become almost like the first class.
Yeah, the business we serve now is better than the first class when I joined the company. So of course, technology has improved. We've improved considerably, but it's a significant difference from regular economy. So it has served us well. Some companies have that as part of the corporate travel policy. Not all, I think. But as more and more carriers introduce premium economy, like the European carriers, we think that more and more companies will start to have a premium economy class travel policy.
And the ultra long haul flights, I mean, as I said, you operated it before, I think on a 4-engine A340, then between fuel price and economic crash, the economics went away and you stopped those. Are you more optimistic about those routes surviving this time around with the A350?
We now serve Singapore-New York non-stop on our 350 ultra-long-range flights. You're right in your research, John. We now serve it on a 2-engine plane made of composite materials, which is lighter to fly, and therefore maximum takeoff weight is lower compared to the 4-engine A340-500 which we had previously. The demand of the market is, response has been good. We fly non-stop from Singapore to United States to Los Angeles, San Francisco and New York. That has helped us to serve the US markets without having to require intermediate stop.
And I think I saw you're going to start Seattle as well.
That is correct. Seattle comes online in September this year.
Okay.
So the 350 ultra long range planes will help us serve many points in the United States without the need of an intermediate stop.
I'm interested, before I forget, you're branching into India with this joint venture with Tata, Vistara. Is that positioned also in the quality end of the market? You know, it's actually, as you said, it's a market of opportunity, but a pretty tough market.
Yes, India is not an easy market to operate in, and we've got a tremendous partner in Tata. We own 49% stake in the Indian space, and Vistara was set up, I think, about three or 4 years ago, and it has recently got the approval to fly international, and we look forward to them flying international. Part of our Singapore Airlines philosophy is to look at multiple hubs approaches. So whilst we have a stake in Vistara, we also have another stake in Scoot, which is a Thai joint venture with a Thai partner through our low-cost entity Scoot in Thailand. So where opportunities arise, we will look at how we can set up other subsidiary companies in the other growth markets that we operate in.
Now, Gavin, I mean, we just heard about the range of products that Joey has in Singapore Airlines. It's focused on premium, 4-cabin flights on occasion. You mentioned some of the terminology earlier on, and one of which I think was rich content.
Yep.
Is that what this is about? Because my beginnings in the airline industry, and probably yourself, Joey, was either booking, somebody would ring up the airline telephone sales, or they'd go to a travel agent,
yep,
or later book through one of these global distribution systems. You were either telling them what the price was of a schedule, you might say it was business class or economy, and you looked on a screen and it told you the price and the timing,
yep,
but you couldn't really give a customer any idea about what the product was. Is that what this is all about? Is that the way the world is going?
Yeah, well, it's certainly in terms of Skyscanner's priorities just now, in terms of this direct booking product. In the past, you would have performed a search on Singapore to Melbourne, for example, and you would have been given a price, and it would have been a default, it would have been an economy flight, etc. Now, in the past, we would have been actually just given that price from a GDS, a global distribution system. Now what we're doing is through the NDC program, it's giving airlines the power to actually send us directly pricing, specific pricing, but also rich content. So you could, in theory, actually send down pictures of the business class lounge in Changi, for an example, to differentiate your airline versus the other airlines that are in it. And it's really, that's the direct booking is really about creating almost like a branded storefront for Singapore Airlines. And we work with a number of airlines, Cathay Pacific in that sense as well. And it's really just bringing more content and more rich content to the user so that they can make a better decision based on that.
And that's something that you are developing a partnership approach to with airlines.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking because, you know, is it going to be a case of once bitten, twice shy? Airlines created these GDS monsters, so to speak, in their eyes.
Yeah.
They came back to get bitten because they created them, sold them off, then they had to pay for every booking. Is there not the risk of a repeat relationship of that kind between airlines and these new ways of distributing? Yeah,
I think it's dangerous for an airline to assume that users in 10, 15 years are going to type in www.singaporeairlines.com. Sorry for using that as an example, but it's the forward-thinking airlines are now thinking about where is the traveller going to be in the next sort of 10 to 15 years. That could be on Skyscanner, it could be on Alexa show, voice recognition, asking them, show me flights to LAX, and then seeing them on a screen and having destination images to try and predict them to do it as well. This is about going where the consumer's going, and you can't just rely on your direct traffic coming to for the foreseeable future. You've got to have an open mind to looking at when you enter a market like Korea. Okay, let's look at Kakao and Naver, the technologies in that market. In Thailand, what are Line doing in that sense? And the same as China, we mentioned it before. You've got airlines have created branded storefronts in Tmall in China. They've worked closely with Tunar, etc. I think it would be dangerous, especially when you enter new markets, to just assume that you're going to fill up the plane coming back the way. A lot of it's about being open, and we've actually worked really closely with Scoot in that sense as well, and they came in very early with us and realised that there was a value for them to work with people like Skyscanner in that market, because that's where the local consumers were in that sense as well.
Joey, I mean, do you buy what Gavin is saying? I mean, the Singapore Airlines accept that version of the future? I mean, Singapore and Scoot, or are you still trying to hold on to get it more directly through your website or your app?
I think fundamentally we must recognize that the technology changes things.
Yeah.
And we must be ready to adopt to what the market requires. So in terms of aggregators, the reality is this. I mean, if I just use a parallel example, I think everyone in this room probably has used Booking.com before to book their hotels. 10 years ago, people would have probably gone to a travel agent. But the market has changed. Technology changes things. Technology changes our behaviors. So as much as people go to Booking.com or Hotel.com to book their hotels, and they go there because it's an aggregator to get the hotels, likewise, I think the future will be there will be other people who go to aggregators like Skyscanner to get their airline tickets as well. So how do we move in the environment? Well, we work with Skyscanner as we do with other aggregators, but we think that there is a role for them. And in the case of the millennials, some of them go to aggregators, some book direct. But we want to make sure that whichever medium that they go to, we are there. I think that's a key.
Do you have a fear, and I'd like your comments to come in too, Gavin, of the big powerful entities like the Googles, the Amazons, are they going to take your lunch, Joey, and have it all under their control and effectively go back to those days of feeling you in the hands of GDS?
Yeah, I think managing distribution or monopolizing distribution is a very dangerous thing. But I'm not so sure how that can be done in the internet age and in the internet space. If you talk about Google, yes, Google search wants to have a piece of the action. It remains to be seen how they will come out with their meta search engine like Skyscanner. But fundamentally, I think the internet superhighway does provide a lot of opportunities. It does provide a lot of disruption. And if there is some disruption, I think companies must adopt to the disruption, or we will find that our business will be at risk. So it is important for us to adjust to the changing marketplace that technology avails itself. And we think it's an opportunity as well, right, for us.
And Gavin, I mean, those examples I gave, the power of, say, Google and Amazon, is that different to what you're suggesting, or could you also be seen as one of these entities that's going to get more and more powerful and take something away from the airlines?
I still see us as facilitating direct bookings for airlines. As I mentioned before, nothing's changed at this stage with regards to Singapore Airlines. The merchant of record is still Singapore Airlines. They still own the customer, so it's incremental business in terms of direct business in that sense as well. Like you acknowledge Google, you acknowledge the power they have in the search pages that they have, but to be honest, I can't be too hard on innovation. Like Skyscanner were one of the original disruptors in cheap flights, and more competition out there, it just breeds innovation as well. So yeah, can't be too critical in that sense. A lot of what we've done is Skyscanner is really focused on mobile, but not only mobile, but the app. So we don't have to rely on playing that paid marketing game, spending millions and billions fighting for position in Google search results in that sense. Luckily, we've got quite a strong app business out there as well.
And what about, again, consumer behavior changes with using bots and voice and so on? This to me is something that is really pretty well unknown in my personal experience.
Sure. So Skyscanner experimenting, as I said before, mobile is absolutely the priority for us just now, but we experiment a lot in emerging technologies. And we first started experimenting in bots in 2016, learned a great deal over time, and a lot of the confidence from the users is around using bots for customer service, FAQs, that side of things, and not so much on the booking side of things, and we decided to focus in other areas. But chatbots have been very successful, KLM, Transavia, I even believe SQ had a chatbot. I don't know if it's still live or not, but at some stage as well. I think what's more interesting for me is around voice search and the impact that that's going to have. Baidu's chief scientist predicted 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was, that voice search would make up 50% of all searches globally by 2020. It's very unlikely that that's going to take place, but it still gives you an idea of the significance of voice search, and marketing teams and airlines and travel agents and meta search like Skyscanner, really need to start thinking about the impact of voice search. So how do we appear in the results, and how do these results happen? Right now there's technical issues about the accuracy of voice search recognition, but they will get that. They'll get it and they'll nail it down so it's almost human-like as well. And when they get that, how do you position SQ? How do you position other airlines, Emirates, etc., within that space? You've got organisations like Amazon who are getting a lot of traction on the smart speakers, and now it's a smart speaker with a screen. So you have that. It went from one result to having something you could visually see multiple results as well. Google Home Hub as well. Actually, a couple of months ago, I watched someone on stage using Google Assistant to book a hairdresser appointment for them. And they successfully, the Google Hub, called the hairdresser, booked the hairdresser, made an appointment, conversation back and forth with the person on the end of the line, and then pulled it out. That's the level that we're moving towards as well. And it's how do we operate in that space, and how do we succeed in that space as well?
Just changing subject off the tech stuff specifically, one thing that you've been working on, Joey, is stopover products in Singapore. How important is that to you as an airline, and what does it mean in terms of tourism development to your home country?
Well, it's very important for us because whilst we bring a lot of passengers from point A to point B, we think it's also important for them to visit Singapore. Particularly when you mentioned that we fly long haul, a 15-hour flight from the United States. So if a person is going from the United States to Bali and it's a long hop, why not stop over in Singapore? So we introduced this Singapore Stopover Holidays program package. So to entice people to consider a 1-night or 2-night stopover in Singapore, we package it together with attractions, tourist attractions, hotel package, includes transfers. So it's been very attractive. People have, I hope they were enticed because of the package that we offered them, which included what you call a boarding pass privileges program, which we tie in, where a passenger who has the Singapore Airlines boarding pass gets discounts at eating outlets and shopping outlets in Singapore. So it's a very attractive value proposition for people to consider stopping over, especially if you have made a very long trip, whether you're going from Europe to Australia and intending to break journey, or whether you're from the United States going to Asia and if you're in the neck of the woods, why not consider more than one country?
And do you work with tourism partners or hotel partners, for example?
Yes, we work with Changi Airport as well as the Singapore Tourism Board to put this together. And we find that it's a win-win-win proposition. It's part of what we do as a national carrier to bring people into Singapore, not just through Singapore, but to Singapore, so that they can contribute to the economy. And of course, in future, if they would like to come to Singapore, hopefully they will travel with us again.
And is there any free hotel accommodation? I work myself with the Icelandic Airport Authority, and I know their Iceland Air on their US-Europe product, you can get free accommodation built into the ticket price. Or no, is it more discounts, as you described?
Oh, for us, it's not a free hotel. I think the entry level, which is for one night, if my memory serves me right, it's only about 110 dirhams, okay, which is relatively affordable. For a one-night hotel, it's subsidized by us. Includes a transfer to the hotel. And I think for 2 nights, if you include in, I think, access to some of the attractions, it's like about 170 dirhams. So it's still a very relatively affordable product for a person who wants to come to Singapore. And looking at the hotel prices in Singapore, they will find that it's a good deal. And people who find that they have time to spend another day or two, we encourage them, or people in this hall, to come, please visit Singapore. But that's valid only if they travel Singapore Airlines or Silk Air.
Joe, time is almost up for us. Would anybody like to ask a question or to this gentleman here, if we could just get a microphone to you? Anybody else? Hands up anywhere? If you wouldn't mind kindly just introducing yourself.
Yes, sure. Hi, it's Daniel Edwards here, Head of VIP at London Heathrow Airport. So just to bring a bit of a airport twist back to this panel discussion. Joey, it's really building on what you were saying previously around Singapore Airlines' relationship with Changi as the home carrier. So obviously we've recently seen the Jewel open at Changi Airport. So I'm interested to know how was Singapore involved in the creation of this, and any advice you have for airports who might be investing in serious, significant infrastructure in the future, how they involve their key airline customers in making those decisions around infrastructure.
Okay, in terms of infrastructure development, Jewel is a joint venture between Singapore, Changi Airport Group, as well as, I think, CapitaLand. We have no stake in the entity. It's for the benefit of those who are not aware. It is a humongous mall with vortex designed by well-known architect Shafi Moshdi, if my memory serves me right. Our main input is to make sure that there is sufficient check-in facilities so that customers can check in seamlessly. Early check-in is made available and can continue on to their flights. We want to make sure that customers are not late for their flights, and it is actually a good stopover product for passengers who have time to spend at the airport. So we don't have a financial stake, but as a stakeholder, we have it's such that the access from, in Singapore we have Terminal 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the Jewel project is in the centerpiece. In every sense of the word, it's the jewel in the crown. Whether you're in Terminal 1, 2, or 3, you have direct access into Jewel. So that's the most important part for us. We are operating out of Terminal 2 and Terminal 3, and it's somewhat seamless. I don't know if you've been there, but you should. I was there just last week, and it's humongous. They have really done a very good job, and I think it's another reason why people should transit to Changi. I understand that they got the Best Airport award last night. So maybe that's another feather in their cap.
Joey, maybe it's a crazy question, but it seems to me there is a pretty positive relationship between yourselves and Changi. Do you think airports are, not only Changi, but in general, do you see it as a partnership, or is it, as sometimes seems to me, a bit of like a marriage, a love-hate relationship, but there's a fight over the customers, or whose customer is? Is it the airline? Is it the airport? Who's getting most revenues? Is it the airport retail? Are airports also playing their part in this technological advance and making life easier for the end user?
Okay, I cannot speak for other airlines or other airports, but what I can say is that Singapore Airlines and Changi Airport Group, we work very closely together. It is important for us to have a good home airport where customers want to transit through. If we don't have, I think we would not be as successful if Changi Airport were not as well arranged and well organized. So certainly having a strong partnership between the national carrier as well as the airport would be a very strong winning combination. We work closely together to exchange ideas in terms of passenger flows. There's now discussion on new Terminal 5, and we work closely together to make sure that our joint interests are put together and in the design of the new airport.
Have you still got the microphone by any chance? Can we just, I'm going to make sure you're going to get it back. I'm going to put a question back to you if you don't mind. If I'd known you were there, I could have got you to join the panel here to put the airport voice. Just tell us a bit in terms of technology in airports, I mean, your own experience at Heathrow. Sure. What is the latest state of play? I think I was reading, having flown out of Heathrow this weekend, there's going to be biometrics this summer, no more need, I think, to show passports and boarding cards.
Yes, that's quite new. The plan is that from this summer, actually, it was announced in the press last week that Heathrow will start removing the need to have passports, and that customers will be invited to register biometric data, facial recognition linked to their passport. And then rather than having to show it at different points in the journey through the airport, face recognition cameras will actually pick up the customer's face and allow them on the next stage of their journey. So it's just about removing some of those physical barriers in the journey, if you like, to our customers. So yeah, it's a very exciting time, I think, and it was interesting hearing all of yourself talking about the developments in Skyscanner and you know, how people pay for things. That's one big journey that we're going on at Heathrow at the moment. Retail is so important to us. So how we accept different methods of payment, how we can really make the benefit around sort of pre-departure sales of luxury goods, and obviously I work in VIP, so how can we really enhance the services for those really important guests coming through as well. But yeah, I think it's an exciting time for the whole industry, and airlines and airports working together with other key suppliers as well it can only be good for the customers, right?
Do you think I was fair to say of this love-hate relationship between airlines and airports, or do you think there's more to do or more being done together? I think
the airlines and the airports have to collaborate and work really closely to ensure that the product that's being offered suits, you know, the customers that are traveling through on the airlines. But also we need to remember that the airlines are also the customers of us as an airport. So we really, really value those relationships and think about the relationships with our airline customers as important as the end user relationships.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for being put on the spot.
No worries.
I think we're going to have to wrap up, unfortunately. So I'd like to thank you for being here as the audience. I'd like to thank Gavin Harris from Skyscanner, Joey Sehu from Singapore Airlines. Safe trip back home to Changi tonight. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our next session in aviation, which will be at 1:20 tomorrow afternoon, when I'll be interviewing Group CEO of Air Arabia, Adil Ali, in this same room. So enjoy your evening in Dubai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gavin.